We sat down with the village chief when Zampam came to discuss whether we would agree to have them here. We agreed in the hope that our situation would improve as...
So actually that's an example of local democracy. So you have the chief, which is kind of the tribal king, and you have the village elders who are members of parliament.
Those are members of parliament?
Kind of, in a very small scale. This is how those local villages work. So you have the chief and you have the elders, and they
moved from farmland outside, is it?
So basically, they were living there, but then they were driven off their land. But actually, all after discussion with the chief, but actually the chief had been promised have been promising things to them, but those things were never delivered.
No, my question is, they lots of subsidies over here, and those money is some missing or?
No, it's not missing. So it's basically it's investment that this serves only just corporate objectives. There's nothing to do with development aid. So 10 million has been invested, but only 100 jobs, 120 jobs have been created. They made promises for development of schools, of local facilities. They never came into existence. So this is nothing to do with development aid. It is basically just a private initiative with private objectives that is using public money.
Only subsidies for using the company's goods.
Yeah.
What those people are they here?
They are people who used to live in this area. They gave up their land in order to give it to Zampam, and Zampam had promised them to develop, to give a school, to create jobs, so that their children would have a better future. That's why they agreed. Okay, so we give up the land, but in exchange we will get jobs, we will get education, we get and it
but actually it never happened.
Never happened.
Okay.
Alt. Chief Copper, who officially distributes the land, was given a tractor. But the population is still waiting for the business to make good on its promises. The clinic Zampam promised 8 years ago, the police station, the school. After some hesitation, the village elders expressed their dissatisfaction. The new school was never built. We only have the old state school here. You can see it over there. None of the things Zampam promised have been built. Not the school, not the clinic, not the police station.
But they got money, right?
No.
The plantation manager confirms the plans for a clinic and a school, but he won't talk about it on camera. Zambeef's management also refuses to grant us an interview. The company says it will answer in writing once it has all the facts, but that still hasn't happened.
Company?
Sorry?
Farming.
Yes.
What does the lender, DEG, have to say?
Zambia. The biggest farming company.
As far as we know, no promises were made. The question always is, to what extent should a company that pays taxes to the state also invest additionally in this social infrastructure?
We want to see
So
progress.
basically, so they say, well, I mean, we are a private company, so why would we invest in social infrastructure? We're paying taxes, right? So why don't they use their taxes to develop the schools but that's not what happened locally. So this guy reads the reports. He's not interested, and also he's ignoring the fact that they're using 10 million of public money to develop the land there, which is environmentally very questionable, which produces a lot of CO2, and it doesn't do much for local development. So it's just misappropriation of public funds.
Before we die, especially us three.
especially we three.
We want to see that our children are getting ahead, that we've left something good for them.
Companies aren't required to build clinics and schools, but in regions with poor infrastructure, that's what they often promise so as to gain access to land. Zampalm isn't the only farm run by Zambeef. In the northwest of the company has another large farm on 10,000 hectares. The village of Mimbolo is close by. A land conflict has been smouldering here for more than a decade. 50 families were forced out by the predecessor company. The villagers fought back. During their protest march, the fence of the plantation was destroyed. Francis Commander and a neighbour were arrested and spent 10 days in police custody. Initially, they were to be sentenced to 5 years in prison, but the Zambian president intervened and they were released. However, they had to pay a fine of €7,000 for the broken fence.
They were suffered. I was with the kids at home. We not finished to give them for the food for the child to eat, nothing. So I staying here for hungry. Well, we need to go back to the land there because we have nowhere to farm. So if the land is given back to us, we are due to go back there.
Es gab früher eine Situation,
There was a situation in the past where the local population claimed it had access to this land and was allowed to use it.
Land hätten und das nutzen dürften. Und da es sich in diesem konkreten Fall
And since in this case it was government land, it was legal for Zambeef to get this farm and this concession.
Zambeef diese Farm und die Konzession erhalten hat.
So this is actually a common story.
The village...
So basically, local people are living there. They have been using that land, but then the government claims it's their land, so they can sell it, right? So then, what? Basically, they just listen to their Zambeef and that corporation from Germany. They conveniently do business with the government and say, okay, well, it's not our responsibility that these people are there. We did business with people who say they are the owners, but we know that actually they probably did know or should have known that were people living there, but they conveniently ignored that.
How government kicked them out?
Well, basically, the government says, okay, this is your land. And then based on that, they provided with the papers. And then Zambeef, they drove those people out from their land. So those people were just living there, but the government claimed it's their money. So, that's it. So we have the right to be here. So those people were driven out.
Push them out.
Yeah. So this is always the problem when you do business with the government who is not taking the interest of their own people to their best of mind. Also, the Korean government comes to mind when they were. Well, it reminds me a little bit of the comfort women situation in Korea. Government did not represent everybody in that case. When money was paid from Japan.
He took the